Yeah, so I already talked about my slide, so it's not worth repeating. And then, yeah, coming, you're probably also going through this, practice. You realize that coming up with a good research question is not that difficult. There is some sort of systematic way to do it, and then you guys can do it. All right, and then if any further questions, please send it to discussion forum or tutorials, okay? So for the rest of the roughly 1 hour, 50 minutes, I'll just go through the following as learning objectives. You'll be able to think and answer about the following questions. 1, how can we characterize our own phenomenology? What do you see in the moment? What is the phenomenology of a backward masking? And what are the methods to measure the neural activity in the brain to promote consciousness research? And then as a reading material, I suggest chapter 2 and for Quest for Consciousness, and also both where they're coming from. I already put the link in the Moodle. And as somebody asked in the general discussion forum, these reading materials are not the kind of the thing that I examine with the questions. So the e-assessment will not poke into sort of the details of this kind of knowledge. In general, I will not ask any kind of not any. Sometimes anatomical areas and so on, which repeats will be asked. But the more important thing is the so-called Fermi inference, the type of the logical inference that you can make based on what you know. So something like when I said in the last part, mouse has a brain that is 10 times smaller than humans, right? Humans have roughly 10 centimeter, 10 centimeter, 10 centimeter kind of cube of the brain, on both sides. And mouse or rat has smaller than that. And then that means, or that seems to suggest that what happens in terms of number of the neurons. Okay. So I don't know, maybe we can ask about it in the chat. This is one example of the e-assessment kind of question. If the number of the neurons in the brain is roughly 10 to the 11, 10 with 11 zeros, in humans, how many neurons would you expect there in mouse? So as an sort of 3 IFC, maybe 10 to the 5 or 10 to the 8 or 10 to the 11. What do you think? As a quiz, 3 AFC, option option A is 10 to the 5. 10 to the 5 means 100,000 neurons. 10 to the 8 is 100 million. 10 to the 11 is 100 billion. Wait a sec. For some reason, it doesn't work. Okay, it works. Yeah, okay. So some of them already gave a correct answer, 10 to the 8. Yes, roughly the same. Roughly, that's right. So, inverse inference can also work potentially. Like if I say, but this one works if you assume the number of the neurons are proportional to the volume of the brain, right? And roughly it's the case, so that works. So things like this is the one that I will ask in the e-assessment in general. So not to come back to what I was trying to say, reading material is not the source of the detailed knowledge that I'm going to ask in the e-assessment. Okay. All right. So let's move on. So how can we characterize our own phenomenology? That's the first question. And there are lots of ways to characterize our phenomenology. One is as a psychology student, some of you might have heard of the introspection, like looking into your own mind and then reporting on your introspection with various methods. And for example, you can describe what you are experiencing, like, I'm now tired, or I'm feeling sleepy, or I'm excited, or I'm happy, whatever. You can explain what you are experiencing by the verbal reports. And then you can also write it. You can press a button, or many other kinds of the behavior measures like eye movements, hand adjustment, and pointing. Okay, and then some of you will be presenting this so-called experiential sampling method. That's a very new kind of technique over the last 10 years. So, pretty much everybody has now, iPhone. And then this random sampling will just, come up, once in a day, or, many times in a day, and then ask you to report what you are thinking at that point. Something like that is also a way to characterize your phenomenology or experience. So here I wanted to stop and then to think about what's the pros and the cons of each research method. And this is a part that I'm not showing to you on the pre-recorded slides, but can any of you suggest pros, advantage, or cons of introspection or research reports in the context of a consciousness research? Maybe a bit difficult to, you're potentially too shy to say anything? What's the sort of the advantage of, let's say, the easiest thing maybe probably reports to study consciousness? So one way to say is that reports are potentially easy to quantify, right? Because it's something that, we can put the, number to it, and then like, percentage were correct. So, it's easy to quantify. And so maybe we can do the science rigorously as well because of that. On the other hand, introspection has an advantage, potentially. Can anybody say potential advantage of introspection? No idea? Yeah, possibly, because it's much more flexible in just introspecting your own experience. Maybe it's possible to approach conscious experience most directly, and that's the reason why introspection was initially proposed as a method for the consciousness research. But disadvantage is sort of flip of each of these things. Like introspection itself can also alter experience, like trying to introspect whether you are happy or not right now might make you less happy. Also, whether just introspecting on your happiness, is it possible to do the science? It may be unclear. I think it's possible, but many people have problem with that kind of approach. Okay, and then the reports are the opposite of this, introspection. So possibly, reports can only, take into account of what has been prepared by the experimenters. Like if you're studying happiness, maybe you can ask about happiness, but it's plausible that some experience may contain both happiness and anger, but it may not be asked. And also, I also put this a bit difficult kind of thing called leading to a wrong attitude. So what I mean by that is this. So this is a slide from a comic book depicting a situation where some guy lost an wallet in the park and then trying to find it. And then the policeman is asking this guy, why are you looking, what are you looking for? And then why you are looking about that here. And basically he says that I know I lost it in the park, right? And so that means that, it should be the case that you should look at the purse or wallet in the park, but because the light is there, he is looking at the place where you can look at, you can search for. And this is a kind of the metaphor that I think is quite prominent in the behavioristic kind of approach to the consciousness. So report is definitely something that is easy to deal with, to do the science as well. However, it's not the case that reportable and easily quantifiable aspects of experience is the essence of the conscious experience. And I'll try to give you an idea or a demo so that it will help you understand what I mean by that in next slides. Okay. So, but the consequence is that you should be aware of assumption of your methods or the fields. And this is again, coming up again this week's, but it's very, very important and pervasive, even if you go different fields than the consciousness research. Doubting assumption, doubting what others say is often very important to make a huge discovery or huge progress or huge kind of a success in any field. And just by the fact that you can measure something, don't believe that that is the thing that you wanted to believe, you wanted to measure in the first place. Okay, so let's move on and then to say something more. Yeah, maybe I'll just say. So in terms of summary, so what I've been saying to you guys is that there are many ways to characterize the phenomenology, and the introspection is a good and also nice starting point. But reports in different methods are also important, and there are many ways to do that as well. But we shouldn't be limited to the study of the reported contents of consciousness, as I will explain to you in the next section or demonstration. Okay, so let's move on. Do you have any questions so far? Fine. Okay. So what do you see in a moment? Let's try to report as much as you can. So one way to characterize what you are experiencing is to report it as much as possible. So I'm going to show some image very briefly to you, and then you will describe what you experience. But at this stage, before seeing anything like this, do you have any expectation or sort of the prediction about what you can experience with very limited duration of the stimulus presentation? Does anybody have an idea on what you guys can experience? When I show it really briefly, like 0.1 second, a fraction of a second, do you see anything or nothing? Maybe a dominant color. Okay, that's a good guess. All right, and then let's try to do this. Okay, some separation of shape and the color. That's another possibility. Any other expectation? No? Okay, then let's do the experiment. All right. So here I'm going to show a brief image. Okay. So you are going to write down what you see. Okay. So if you are ready, then just as a practice, can you type ready in the chat box? Either to me or to everybody. That's fine. Okay. So you are ready? Or somebody may not have an access to the keyboard, I don't know. But I'll go. Okay, so everybody is pretty much ready? Okay. So just one more check. Are you ready to do this? Type what you see in the chat box as much as possible. You know, one word by one chat is also fine. Okay. 3, 2, 1, 0. Were you able to see something? Or was it too brief for the Zoom connection? Okay. One, two, three person already responded. Is there, can you respond? Okay, so everybody responded by now. All right, so now the responses wise: Paris, Eiffel Tower, trees, blue skies, tower, green, grass, tree, Eiffel Tower, tree, grass, and Eiffel Tower, grass, less trees and sky. So many people seems to see something very similar. Is it pretty much the same thing as what you expected or not? The expectation was just a dominant color or a separation of shape and the color. It seems it's more than that. But let's try another thing. Okay, 3, 2, 1, 0. One more time. Okay, great. FCHD, FCOJHQ, FCHD was the first line of 12 letters, FCH. So many people seems to report FC and H. Okay. Then one last thing. Okay. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, 2 persons. If you didn't have any idea, that's also fine. You know, no idea, or just just report whatever you saw. Okay. All right. So Federation Square, I have been there. My first thought was Melbourne Square, yellow, 2 buildings. So, okay, that's all great. So just to show you, so this is the last picture that you saw. And then this is one before FCHD was there, in fact. And then the first one was this. Okay. So the reason why I showed all of this is that whether that matches with your, I wanted you to think about, what you will be able to see in a brief moment without any expectation and so on, right? At least so far, many of you were able to say quite a specific kind of object, such as an Eiffel Tower. Eiffel Tower was reported 3 out of 4. And then here, it's not only the letters, but many of you actually reported F, C, and the H, which is top left 3 letters here, which is always interesting. When I do this demo, almost always everybody reports the letters from here and then going this way, even if you are looking at the center. So, as if, you first see this image, and then after it disappears from your vision, you try to start to see or read in mental, mind from the top left, like, almost as if you're reading this, text. So the comment, maybe our view from the left to top, from the big to small, remember large color black first. So that's one possibility, but we actually don't know why this is the case. Here, it's quite, a strange thing is that I never told you that I'm gonna show a letter array, right? And this is very close to the point of fixation that where you are looking at, and also it has the best, visual acuity. This is a part of the content that you will see in the next 2-3 weeks. Yet, after seeing everything, for some reason, you start to read or report from top left. It's very weird, and I think this is one of the potential interesting kind of project in the future, but we haven't gone through it yet. Would cultures read or write in vertical columns and report different letters? Yes, that's also another thing that I'm also thinking about. But when I tested it in Japanese culture, which also has a reading direction of this to this way, so vertical first and then to this direction. I don't remember anybody reported from this one first, but maybe that's because I didn't use the Japanese characters. So next time I have a demonstration like this, I might try this using a Japanese character and then see whether that's true or not. Another comment, the Eiffel Tower pops out in the background, so it catch our attention. That's also another interesting point. But it's interesting to think about the definition of attention in this case, okay? So here, I agree that this is probably catches attention because it's an against sort of the background, low contrast background. Maybe it, pops up. Yes, potentially. But that kind of explanation should be also true for other cases as well. Like here, I'm not sure why top left one should pop up as attention grabbing, because the sort of against the background, these all corners have an advantage over the white space, right? But it seems at least all 4 of you reported only F, but not the D or A. So it's unclear, but that's not a bad idea. And then finally, okay, so that's another thing here. So this is a Federation Square that tries to a little bit address the cultural thing as well. I don't know whether the people who didn't come up with this term Federation Square have never seen Federation Square before, or have seen it but was not really familiar with it. I have lived in Melbourne for roughly like 10 years, but if I were shown this very briefly. I may not be able to come up with the term Federation Square because I don't rarely go there. So this kind of question can be addressed in a empirical way, whether cultural effects on the perception or perception constraints or expectation constraints what you can see. So that's something that we can empirically do as a research. And then with that, we'll take another 4-minute break. And then we'll come to the last part of today's lecture.